My wife smirked and told me I was nothing without her during an argument. I didn't shout or beg. I let her finish talking and made one quiet decision that completely destroyed the confidence she was so proud of. You're nothing without me. You know that, right? She said it with a smirk. Not anger. Not tears. A smirk. Like she'd been holding on to that truth for years and finally decided I was ready to hear it. Hey viewers, before we move on to the video, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button if you want to see more stories like this. I'm 34. We've been married for 7 years. And in that moment, standing in our kitchen with her arms crossed and that expression on her face, I realized I'd been living with a stranger. I didn't respond right away. I just stood there, dish towel still in my hand, staring at the woman I'd built my entire adult life around. Nothing to say? She continued, leaning against the counter. That's what I thought. Her voice had this edge to it. Sharp. Practiced. Like she'd rehearsed this moment in her head 100 times. Where is this coming from? I finally asked. My voice was calm. Too calm, maybe. Oh, please. She rolled her eyes. Don't act surprised. You've been coasting for years. My job pays for this house. My connections got you that promotion. My family helped us when your little startup failed. Every word was a knife. Precise. Deliberate. I never asked you to. You didn't have to ask, she interrupted. I did it because that's what I do. I fix things. I make things work. And you? You just exist in the life I've created. I set the dish towel down slowly. My hands weren't shaking. That surprised me. Is that really what you think? I asked. It's not what I think. It's what I know. She pushed off the counter and walked past me toward the living room. I'm going to bed. Lock up when you're done feeling sorry for yourself. I stood there alone in the kitchen for a long time. The refrigerator hummed. The clock ticked. And something inside me shifted. Not rage. Not heartbreak. Just clarity. I walked to my office and opened my laptop. 45 minutes later, I'd sent 3 emails. Then I went to bed. She was already asleep. Or pretending to be. I didn't care which. The next morning, she acted like nothing had happened. Poured her coffee. Checked her phone. Asked if I'd seen her car keys. On the hook by the door, I said. Thanks. She didn't look up. I've got that client meeting tonight, so I'll be late. There's leftover pasta in the fridge. Actually, I'll be out tonight too. That made her glance up. Out where? Meeting someone. Her eyes narrowed slightly. Who? A lawyer. The coffee mug stopped halfway to her lips. Excuse me. I have a consultation at 6. Shouldn't take more than an hour. She set the mug down carefully. What kind of lawyer? The divorce kind. For the first time in years, I saw something crack in her expression. Not the smirk. Not the confidence. Just surprise. You're joking. I'm not. Because of last night. She let out a short laugh. God, you're so sensitive. It was just an argument. No, I said quietly. It was the truth. Your truth. And I heard it loud and clear. I didn't mean. Yes, you did. I grabbed my jacket from the chair. You meant every word. And honestly, I'm grateful you finally said it out loud. Saves us both a lot of time. Wait. She stepped toward me. You're being ridiculous. Couples fight. That's normal. Couples fight, I agreed. But they don't eviscerate each other. They don't keep score. And they definitely don't tell each other they're nothing. Her jaw tightened. So what? You're just going to throw away 7 years because I hurt your feelings. I'm leaving because you showed me who you really are. And I believe you. I opened the door. I'll be staying at a hotel for a few days. We can talk through lawyers. You don't even have money for a lawyer, she called after me. I paused at the threshold. Actually, I do. Funny thing about that startup you mentioned? The one that failed? I turned to look at her. It didn't fail. I sold it. Quietly. 2 years ago. The color drained from her face. The money's been sitting in an account you don't know about. I was going to surprise you. Use it for our dream vacation. Maybe a down payment on that lake house you always talked about. I shrugged. Guess I'll be using it for something else now. I left before she could respond. The hotel room was small but clean. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at my phone. Part of me expected her to call, to text, to show up at the door. But nothing came. The lawyer consultation went exactly as expected. How long have you been married? 7 years. Any children? No. Joint assets. The house is in both names. Cars too. Bank accounts are mostly separate, but there's one joint account for household expenses. She made notes, her pen scratching across the legal pad. And you mentioned there's a separate account she doesn't know about? Yes. From the sale of my business. About $400,000. The lawyer's eyebrows rose slightly. That's significant. When did the sale occur? 2 years ago. during the marriage. Then it's likely marital property, depending on your state's laws. You'll need to disclose it. I nodded. I'd expected as much. There's something else, I said. Her family loaned us money 5 years ago. $30,000 for a down payment on the house. She's held it over my head ever since. Was it a loan or a gift? They called it a loan, but there was never any paperwork. No repayment schedule. Nothing in writing. Interesting. More notes. Anything else I should know? I hesitated. She's going to fight this. Hard. She doesn't lose gracefully. The lawyer looked up at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Mr. Smith, in my experience, the people who fight the hardest are usually the ones who have the most to hide. I checked into the hotel under my real name, but told the front desk not to give out my room number. Paranoid? Maybe. But I knew her. Day 3, she finally called. I let it ring twice before answering. Hello. We need to talk. Her voice was tight. Controlled. That's what lawyers are for. Stop being childish. Come home. Let's discuss this like adults. I am being an adult. That's why I hired a lawyer. Silence on the other end. Then, I talked to my father. Of course she did. And he thinks you're making a huge mistake. Throwing away a good marriage over one argument. He wants to meet with you. Clear the air. Her father. The man who'd reminded me at every holiday dinner that his money bought our house. Tell him I appreciate the concern, but this isn't his marriage. It is when his money is involved. There it was. That loan was to both of us, I said. And I've been paying the mortgage for 5 years. Pretty sure that counts as repayment. It was a gift, not a loan. You can't repay a gift. I almost laughed. Funny, because for 5 years, you and your mother have called it a loan every time you wanted to win an argument. You're twisting things. I'm remembering things. Clearly, maybe for the first time. Another pause. What do you want? She asked finally. I want a divorce. And then what? You think you'll be happier alone? I don't know, but I know I won't be miserable in the specific way I've been miserable with you. She sucked in a breath. Wow. Okay. I see how it is. Do you? Because I don't think you do. I think you thought I'd come crawling back by now. Apologizing. Begging you to take me back. You should be apologizing, she snapped. I've given you everything. You've given me exactly what you wanted me to have. Everything came with strings. Every gift had a price tag. And every time I tried to stand on my own, you reminded me whose shadow I was standing in. My voice was rising. I forced it back down. I'm done being your project. You're fixer-upper. You're proof of concept. You're being dramatic. Maybe, but I'd rather be dramatic and free than quiet and suffocated. I hung up. My hands were shaking now, but it felt good. Clean. The next few weeks were a blur of paperwork and logistics. I found an apartment. Small but mine. Moved my clothes, my books, my guitar I hadn't played in 3 years. She made it difficult, of course. Changed the locks. For security, her lawyer said. Cleaned out the joint bank account. Household expenses, apparently. Sent her father to my office to have a man-to-man chat. I declined. But the worst part came when I ran into her sister at the grocery store. You know you're breaking her heart, right? She said, blocking my card in the cereal aisle. I don't think that's true. She cries every night. Then why hasn't she called me? Or texted? Or done anything other than try to make this as painful as possible? Her sister blinked. Like that thought hadn't occurred to her. She's proud. You know that. Yeah, I do know that. I also know that pride isn't the same as love. I moved my cart around her and kept walking. The mediation session was scheduled for a Thursday afternoon. We sat across from each other at a long conference table, lawyers flanking us like seconds in a duel. She looked tired. Thinner. Part of me felt guilty for noticing. Let's start with the easy stuff, the mediator said. Vehicles. You each have a car in your own name, correct? We both nodded. And you're both agreeable to keeping your respective vehicles? Yes, I said. Fine, she said. Good. Now the house. This was where it would get ugly. The house is in both names, her lawyer began. But my client's family provided the down payment. As a gift, my lawyer interrupted. There's no documentation suggesting it was a loan. My clients disagree. Then they should have documented it. The mediator held up a hand. Let's table that for now. What about the furniture? Belongings? We went through it item by item. The couch. The dishes. The wedding china we'd never used. It was depressing. Reducing 7 years to a list of objects. And then there's the matter of the undisclosed business sale, her lawyer said, flipping to a new page. I felt her eyes on me. $400,000. Earned during the marriage. That's marital property. Half of which, my lawyer countered, was earned through my client's labor and vision. Labor performed while also contributing to the household. There's an argument for separate property. Weak argument. We'll let a judge decide if it comes to that. The mediator sighed. Is there any room for compromise here? I looked at her. Really looked at her. She was staring at the table, jaws set, arms crossed. The same posture she'd had in the kitchen that night. I'll agree to split the business proceeds, I said quietly. Her eyes snapped to mine. On one condition. Here we go, her lawyer muttered. I get the house. Silence. Absolutely not, her lawyer said. That house was purchased with my client's family money, which I'm willing to reimburse. $30,000 plus interest. 5% annually over 5 years. That's about $8,000 in interest. Call it $38,000 total. I slid a piece of paper across the table. I'll write the check today. The mediator looked at my wife. That's actually quite fair. More than fair. She didn't respond. You'd be walking away with $200,000 in cash, your car, half the furniture, and reimbursement for your family's investment. With interest. Still nothing. Why do you want the house? She finally asked. I'd been expecting this question. Because I built that deck. I painted the bedroom. I fixed the fence after the storm. I planted the garden you never cared about. My voice was steady. You paid for it. But I made it a home. And I'm not ready to let that go. Her laugh was bitter. Of course. Sentimental as always. Yeah, I am. And I'm done apologizing for it. The mediator cleared her throat. Shall we take a short break? Give everyone time to think. We agreed. I stepped outside into the hallway. My lawyer followed. That was a good offer, she said. Better than you had to make. I know. She'd be smart to take it. She won't. Why not? Because it's not about the money. It's about winning. My lawyer studied me for a moment. You really loved her, didn't you? Past tense. That hurt. Yeah, I did. I'm sorry. I shrugged. Me too. We went back in after 15 minutes. The mediator looked hopeful. Have we reached any decisions? Her lawyer leaned forward. My client agrees to the terms. House goes to your client. $200,000 from the business sale goes to my client. Reimbursement of $38,000 for the down payment. Each party keeps their vehicle and personal belongings. Furniture to be divided by mutual agreement or sold, and proceeds split. I blinked. She agreed? I looked at her, but she was staring at the wall. Does your client agree to these terms? The mediator asked me. Yes. Excellent. We'll draft the paperwork in. I want one more thing, she said suddenly. Everyone turned. An apology. The mediator frowned. That's not typically part of. I don't care. I want him to apologize. On record. For abandoning this marriage over nothing. My lawyer opened her mouth, but I touched her arm. It's fine. I looked across the table. I'm sorry, I said. Her eyes gleamed with something like victory. I'm sorry I didn't see who you really were sooner. I'm sorry I wasted 7 years trying to be enough for someone who saw me as a project. And I'm sorry that you're so broken inside that you can't tell the difference between love and control. The gleam died. But most of all, I'm sorry for you. Because one day you're going to wake up and realize that pushing people away was never strength. It was just fear dressed up as confidence. I stood up. We done here? The mediator nodded slowly. I believe so. I walked out without looking back. The divorce was finalized 6 weeks later. I signed the papers in my lawyer's office. She signed them somewhere else. We never saw each other again. The house felt different when I moved back in. Emptier, obviously. She'd taken her half of the furniture. But also lighter. I repainted the living room. Rearranged what was left. Bought a new couch that I actually liked instead of one that matched some aesthetic I never understood. Played my guitar on the back deck until the neighbors complained. Apologized. Kept playing anyway. 3 months after the divorce, I got a text from an unknown number. I heard you're single now. Drink sometime. It was Rachel, a colleague from work I'd always gotten along with. I stared at the message for a long time. Then typed. Sure. When? We met at a bar downtown. She was funny. Easy to talk to. Didn't ask about the divorce, which I appreciated. We talked about work, travel, bad movies we secretly loved. At the end of the night, she touched my hand across the table. I'm glad you texted back. Me too. I wasn't ready for anything serious. I told her that up front. That's okay, she said. Neither am I. Let's just see where it goes. It was refreshing. No expectations. No scorekeeping. Just two people enjoying each other's company. 6 months later, I ran into my ex-wife at a coffee shop. She was with someone. Tall guy. Expensive suit. She saw me at the same moment I saw her. For a second, neither of us moved. Then she walked over. Hey. Awkward silence. You look good, she said. Thanks. You too. Another pause. I heard you're seeing someone. Small town. Of course she'd heard. Yeah. Nothing serious. Just seeing where it goes. She nodded. That's good. You deserve to be happy. I studied her face, looking for sarcasm. Found none. So do you? She smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. I've been in therapy. Working on some things. That's good. Yeah. My therapist says I have control issues. She laughed, but it sounded hollow. Shocking, right? We all have stuff to work on. I know I wasn't. She trailed off. I wasn't fair to you. Toward the end. Before the end. This was the closest she'd ever come to an apology. I appreciate you saying that. The tall guy approached, coffees in hand. Ready to go? He asked her. Yeah. 1 second. She turned back to me. Take care of yourself, okay? You too. I watched them leave. Felt nothing. Not anger. Not sadness. Just a quiet acknowledgement that some chapters close completely. And that's okay. A year after the divorce, I sold the house. Turned out I didn't need it anymore. The memories I wanted to keep weren't tied to walls and floors. I bought a smaller place closer to downtown. Adopted a dog. Big, clumsy thing that knocked over lamps and drooled on everything. Started taking woodworking classes on weekends. Rachel and I were still seeing each other. Still taking it slow. But it felt right. Easy. She met the dog and laughed when he immediately tried to climb into her lap. He's perfect, she said, scratching his ears. He's a disaster. Same thing. I looked at her, sitting on my floor, covered in dog hair, grinning like an idiot. And I thought, this is what it's supposed to feel like. Not perfect. Not effortless. But real. Equal. Kind. What? She asked, noticing my stare. Nothing. Just, thanks for being patient with me. Thanks for being worth the wait. The dog barked and knocked over a water glass. We both lunged for it, laughing. And for the first time in longer than I could remember, I felt like myself. Not someone's project. Not someone's disappointment. Just me. And that was enough. More than enough. Sometimes people ask if I regret how it ended. If I wish I'd fought harder to save the marriage. The truth? No. Because that night in the kitchen, when she smirked and called me nothing, she gave me a gift. She showed me exactly who she was. And I finally believed her. The quiet decision I made that night wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about proving her wrong or teaching her a lesson. It was about choosing myself. Choosing peace over being right. Freedom over familiarity. And my own voice over the one that had been telling me for years that I wasn't enough. She wanted me to believe I was nothing without her. Instead, I discovered I was everything without her weight on my shoulders. That's not the ending she expected, but it's the one I deserved. And I've never looked back.